and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Lisa Williams, also known as the Vision Board Queen. And today we are going to be talking to a guest expert, Jen Griffiths, and we're going to be talking about alternatives to vision boards. Stay tuned to find out more. Hello and welcome. I'm super excited to have the lovely Jen Griffiths with us today. Jen is going to be sharing a little bit about her story and how she uses alternatives to vision boards. So welcome, Jen. It's lovely to have you here.
Hello. Yes, it's good to be here.
Would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners today?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Jen. I am known better as the Tropic Pianist Gamer. I'm based on Anglesey with my husband and 6-year-old boy, who is Welsh. I am an anxiety warrior. I'm a multi-passionate creative, best-selling author and podcaster. So my story is of coming from a place of severe anxiety, which I had an anxiety issue since I was about 13, but I was only formally diagnosed at the age of 27 with generalized anxiety disorder. And it took me until around the age of 35 in about 2021 to start finding a way out of that long dark tunnel, which was anxiety. But I did it with the help of achieving goals and setting visions.
So as the episode is known for, it is alternative to vision boards. So Jen here has been in my community for a number of years now. We are coming up to around 3 years. Am I right, Jen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Jen doesn't actually do vision boards, but she absolutely smashes those goals and those visions, but in an alternative way. Would you like to share what you do that is different to a vision board?
So I've always been different, as in I've always been an outcast, but I like doing things differently. I like thinking outside the box, which is ironic, really, because instead of a vision board, I have a box. So I'm thinking inside the box in this case. So this is my box in the background.
So for those who are watching this on YouTube, you will be able to see this box. If you are on the podcast, you unfortunately won't be able to see, but I'm pretty sure if you wanted to have a look, you can reach out to Jen.
I'll describe it for those on audio. So it's a toddler's shoe box. It's a very handy size for being a little sort of, not pocket box, but a small shoe box, because a big shoe box would be too big. So it's got a star on the front of it, because everything I made stationery wise, because I like making cards and stuff as a side hobby. Everything has stars and hearts on it, because that's just how I do. And I love my rainbows as well. So it's got a rainbow sort of trim with sellotape, and then little stars all over it, and it's got blue hearts and then a big star in the middle. I've just noticed a little bit dusty. It usually sits on top of my shelves when I'm teaching, because I've got my shelves with all my music books on it, and it sits at the top looking pretty. So
okay. So what is inside this box then, Jen? What kind of stuff do you put in there?
There's not much in it at the moment, because I've actually sorted it into the ones that I've stuck with, the ones that I've changed my mind on, and the ones that I don't want to do anymore. So it's worth noting that even if you create a vision board or an attraction box, in my case, you don't have to stick with the visions you've set 3 years ago. So for example, the very first goal I had, I did one of Lisa's challenges, and she said, put down your big, hairy, audacious goal. I think that was it, wasn't it?
It was,
and I was like, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to own a grand piano. So I found a picture of a grand piano and put that in the box. I've since realised that actually the piano behind me, which I teach from, is a very, very good quality piano, and I'd rather keep that than upgrade to a grand piano. So I've actually removed that from the box recently and said I don't want that anymore.
Okay.
One that I have kept, I put a picture because I got some weight loss just before lockdown. So that was me in, the reflection. That was me in 2019. So there's a picture of me looking what I call fat, and I wasn't very happy then. But the picture shows me happy because I'd just achieved, my student had achieved his degree, and I was responsible for him achieving his degree. So that was his goal smashed, but I was feeling fat and miserable inside. So that's a reminder of where I was. And that's the other picture is where I got to sort of in lockdown. I'd lost 2 stone, and the actual vision is to keep it up. So far I've kept most of the weight off, and I'm still proudly wearing my Popsy dress and leggings, which I became known for in lockdown. and then both of them helped my confidence and my motivation to stay a bit more trim.
So, Jem, so if someone is sat here or listening or watching and they are like, well, vision boards I don't really get it. I don't really understand it. That was you, wasn't it? You didn't feel like it worked for you. So what advice have you got to somebody who is at that place where they don't think a vision board is what they want to do?
So when I first met you, it's a networking event where you were the guest speaker and you were talking about vision boards, and I was like, I don't set goals, I don't have any visions, I don't know what I want from life, I don't have any purpose, I have no idea what I'm doing, I don't like this. But I liked Lisa, so I followed Lisa, and obviously we're still connected today. But I actually started setting goals by a lady called Heather Palfreyman, which is one of the big goals I achieved this weekend, which I'll hopefully come to a bit later. But she taught me how to set realistic goals, as in the more manageable, smaller goals. So it's fine having your bigger vision. So if I still wanted to own a grand piano, for example, it's fine saying you'll own it, but how are you going to get there? Grand pianos are at least 30 grand if you're lucky. I don't have that kind of money. I was working off virtually no income for most of lockdown. So a lot of my goal setting was based around free challenges and workshops, just because I didn't have the resources to be able to actually invest in myself back then. So Heather taught me how to put them in step by step. So start with a smaller goal. So we started goal setting after I did one of Heather's challenges in about September, October. She launched her business in September 2020, which is, I believe, roughly the same time as yourself launching your academy and stuff. So I did her challenge and she was like, right, what do you want to do? So piano related, I was like, well, I want to play the piano because from 2016, I was a piano tutor. But I didn't have any kind of portfolio because I was actually so anxious that I wouldn't play the piano if I thought anyone was listening. So that was a bit of an obstacle when you want to be a piano teacher, claiming to be a good piano teacher, but you haven't got the proof to show people that you can actually play the piano. So I was like, well, I need to eventually play the piano for people. How am I going to do that in lockdown? Because you can't get anywhere, you can't play. But I've got my own piano. I've got my own setup. I didn't have this studio at the point in time, but I had my piano in a different room. And she's just like, right, go live then. You've got a Facebook group, because I began Tropic the week before lockdown, which helped with a lot of the self-development stuff. But I had that Tropic group, which was my safe space. And she's like, why not go live in there? How do I go live? I don't know. That's scary. But I had sort of started going live talking about Tropic because I got forced out of my comfort zone when I started. So I was like, well, I can talk. What's the step between talking and playing? There's not an awful lot of step. I've done the talking. The playing is just using your fingers rather than your voice. Okay, so November 2020, like a rabbit in headlights, I went live and played the Glasgow theme, Love theme from Love Actually, on the piano. The feedback was phenomenal. Everyone was like, wow, you played the piano. Wow, that was amazing. And I knew that it wasn't perfect because I was shaking like a leaf, but it was the feedback.
People don't see that, do they?
Yes.
So let's take it back. So obviously, as someone who, you've mentioned about goal setting, but if people are at that point where they don't have that knowledge, those skills, what inspired you to start a box then, Jem? What gave you that inspiration?
So you recommended me the book The Universe Has Your Back by Gabby Bernstein. So that was the book that changed my outlook on life. So I recommend that to anyone who wants to get started on the different kind of perspective of living. And she put about vision boards, I think. And she also mentioned that an attraction box was an option. And I don't have the wall space for an actual physical vision board. I've got like a pin board and I've got stuff pinned to that, but I don't have somewhere for a separate board because my walls are already pretty full of pictures and whatnot. And this is my only room where it's actually my space. But I had space for a small box. As long as it was a small box, I was like, attraction box, that makes sense in my world. What do you do with it? Well, you can put affirmations in it, you can put your goals, you put them on little pieces of paper, and rather than stick them to a board, you just put them in the box. As long as you look at it regularly and reflect on it like you would with a vision board.
How often would you get your box out then?
So this is where I'm not very consistent, I'll admit. I get it out maybe once every few months, and I need to do it a bit more often because I realised this morning that it's a little bit out of date. But I
But
do
you have
it.
in even though you're only getting it out once a month, you have absolutely smashed so much. So I've known you for nearly 3 years now. I think it was June 2020 we first met. And you have absolutely gone from someone who was quiet, not very outgoing, very anxious. You were still quite anxious at that stage, to someone who is now a best-selling author, has their own book, is absolutely smashing, but all of their businesses, all of their hats. You're running massive gaming events for the Nintendo North Wales. So that works for you, doesn't it? It really has been a massive part of your journey.
Yeah, so I'll share my goals book in a minute because that's the next step. But my favourite affirmations from the box: I will keep my confidence and use it well.
I love that, Jen. That's a great affirmation.
And I am in the process of becoming more known. They're my two favourites. But I had
Yeah.
about 10 affirmations in there. I don't actually use affirmations as in I don't talk to myself. We had this conversation during a workshop. I was like, negative self-talk. I was like, I don't talk to myself. I seem to think in music, but that's not a bad thing because I'm not telling myself depressing thoughts. I'm
Yeah.
just singing to myself half the time. But anyway, the step-by-step goals which made everything more manageable was in this.
So that's your
So
goals book.
yes, this is my goals book. So I started in 2021 of January. So I did the live piano in November, and after that, Heather was like, "What's your next goal?" To do a full live Christmas concert on Facebook and sell tickets to it. So I gave away free tickets to members of my den, and they all joined in the concert, and everyone absolutely loved it. It was out of this world, and I had like a speech bubble feedback thing in the shape of a heart of everyone's words describing it, and that motivated me to promise to go live every month in my group there on forward. So I still do that to this day. My next one's this Sunday, for example, which is Mario themed because someone requested a Mario theme specifically. But that
Exciting.
Yeah, so I all started the goal setting monthly as per Heather's suggestion in January 21. I started doing a happiness journal from Lucy Lockett Loves, which is leggings that I'd started collecting. So they're all about positive thoughts and affirmations and stuff. So I started with that. By the end of the year, I had my own journal based on that idea, but I'd written a list of everything I wanted to achieve per month. And my idea, so this was January 2021. So I'm holding up a picture of, there's a list on the left-hand side and an abstract art on the right-hand side. So it had things like practice the piano at least 3 times a week, easily manageable. If I'm playing the piano, I need to practice. Lose 2 kilograms. Well, I work in kilograms, by the way. So I only lost 1 kilograms. So what I chose to do was, if I achieved it, I'd colour it in a solid colour. But if I didn't achieve it but attempted it, I'd stripe it. So there's a couple of patches that are striped there. And if I didn't do it at all, well, that didn't happen. I at least attempted every single goal on that list. And I had ones where it was plan meals properly. So if I did all 7 days of the week, I got a tally point. So I'd do a tiny little shape for that. But the bigger ones, like try to meditate once or start writing serious goals, was a goal for January. I got through them. And then every month I changed the theme up. So I did hearts in February. I did eggs at Easter. I did sunshine in August. I did cupcakes in June because June's my birthday month. So I'll probably do that again this year. But
So
this year
this just goes to show that it's amazing to have a vision board, okay, but it's not the only way that you can achieve those visions, okay. You can do things like what Jen does. She has this box, she has all her visions inside the box, she has a goal book, and she creates a artistic way of her reflecting on what she's actually done. And let's just go into that a little bit more, Jen. So reflecting on your goals, which you do every month, and you tag me every single month without fail on Instagram of what you have achieved with your abstract artwork. Now, that reflection process is really important. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's good to look back on knowing what you've achieved, because sometimes in a given week or month you might feel like you've achieved nothing, but if you look back at what you've done, you realize that actually you've achieved things that you might not have registered at the time. So like having a new piano student is quite important to me because I'm building that side of my business, but I might have had an extra lesson booked in that wasn't anticipated. I've still achieved the extra sort of, in real terms, it's the income, but it's also the extra support for the student. From 2021, I also started setting yearly goals from 2022. So I have a bigger graphic for that. So I'll just show you the graphic rather than the list. But that had the bigger goals. So that was publish my book, Tales of an Anxiety Warrior. Do level
So
1 Reiki.
while we're talking about your book, do you want to share a little bit about your book then, Jen?
So where's my book? There's my book. Right. So my book is Tales of an Anxiety Warrior. So this was what I wanted to publish. So this was sort of a lifetime goal of I wanted to be an author, but I didn't know how to get there. So previously I was taught that you had to be an academic, you had to have a PhD to publish anything. And I got as far as a master's degree, but I never got to the PhD because of anxiety. But anyway, I had anxiety, and that in itself is a story. So I'm a strong believer that everyone has a story, and this was mine to tell. So this is my entire memoirs of living with over 20 years of anxiety disorder, and then how I subsequently overcame it in lockdown without professional help, because the professionals threw pills at me and I rejected the pills and therefore got discharged as not needing help when I was getting more desperate for help. So the process of writing this actually helped with the process of overcoming the disorder. So it's part of the story going forward as well. But it started as a blog. So I wrote the blog in 2021, and at the beginning of 22 I was like, right, this is going to be a physical book. So I set about doing it. And every month I had my goals. So like January was inquire, get the pricing, work out budgeting. February was transfer the blog to non-fiction. And then March was launch the campaign for promoting it. So I did all the guest speaking slots, all the interviews, the podcasts that I could get guest on at the time. And yes, I got burnout at the end of May because
and you absolutely smashed it though, Jen.
I did smash
you really
it.
did. You know,
I was really proud of that. So that was my biggest achievement for last year.
Yeah, and that is absolutely amazing. So if anyone on here who does suffer with anxiety or can relate to that, do go and check Jen's book out, because there's going to be some, you maybe relate to it, you might be able to get some help from it that's going to help you move forward. So do check that out, and I will make sure the link to that is in the comments section as well, so you can go and grab a copy of Jen's book. So how do you, like, for now then, so obviously you're 3 years on from creating that box, you know, starting setting goals, you know, like two and a half years later, you're now in a place where you're working on this, you are doing this every day. But how do you get there? So obviously, if you look back to where you were at when we first met and didn't really understand the vision, you didn't really get it, you didn't really see the importance of it, how did you get from there to where you are now?
So I did it in steps, the goal setting, and although I haven't currently replaced my big hairy audacious goal, I'll have you know, because I haven't decided what I want other than a grand piano yet, because I'm working every day towards achieving my dream life, and I'm actually living almost my dream life now. I'm just missing a few piano students, but other than that, life is as I was hoping it would always be. So it was consistency. So I did little steps over time, and it took about 2 to 2.5 years to really get to where I wanted to be. But you have to start somewhere. So even if somewhere is nothing, you don't feel anything, you've got no purpose, no desires, no direction. If you put that first foot forward and ask for help from someone who has got the idea of how to put that first foot forward, the only way is up. And I
love that. I love that, Jen. That is
step
amazing.
step.
So let's leave that there. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience? Is there anything that you know you're working on that you want to let people know? Obviously, we spoke briefly about your book. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience today?
Well, I have my own podcast as well, so I'm working on building that, because my podcast is a follow-up from my book of Tales of Anxiety Warrior. So my main topics are based around anxiety subjects, but I also have guests on there. So I'm welcoming any guests. I'm booked up till October now, but I am taking on guests for the future months. If anyone has any topics relating to anxiety or my story, obviously to know my story, you have to buy my book. But if you've got any ideas about what you'd like to talk about, hit me up and we'll see where I can fit you in.
Fabulous. And they can follow your podcast. Are you going to send me if I got the link for that? I think I might have. If I haven't, I'll add that in as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to hear more about Jen and her anxiety story and keeping in touch with her via her podcast, do check out those details in the comments below. But Jen, what would you like to leave the audience with today? What is one word or comment of inspiration you would like to leave them with?
Well, I've got my bookmark here actually. My life motto is never give up. And on the other side of the bookmark, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. So the idea is you have to get started in the first place to get unstuck. So if you're feeling stuck, you're never actually stuck. You just need to reach out and ask for help.
I love that.
Everything else will follow.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jen, for joining us today. It has been lovely to have you and see you again, because I only see you the other day, for those of you who do not know that. And it's obviously it's been a privilege to have you on, and watch your journey has been one of the things that has really lighted my fire. Seeing how far you have come is incredible. So if you are listening to this and you need to take that first step like Jen does, then today is that day to take that first step. So I will love and leave you, and we'll speak to you very soon.
Right, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for tuning into this week's YouTube video. And how incredible was that session with Jen today? And I hope you take away from this that you can work on your visions, whether that be via a vision board or via a box.